cover there in yellow. And when my publisher, Penguin, saw the film, they said, new cover. Now I like the other one better. And the poems you heard and the writings are all from this book, I'm a Star, which is now in 8 languages, and it's read in many places. And maybe even your principal or teacher, whoever's teaching you this period, can order it from Scholastic. They are selling it also as a class set. Very famous book today. Now, I don't want to waste any time. I want to give you now a chance to ask me lots of questions. Lots. So I'm sure you thought about things while you saw this. You saw the room I'm born in, you saw my hometown, you saw the camp, and we went to the doll factory. They do this doll again, they produce her again, and they gave me a new doll, which was a little bit bigger than mine, and she was the movie star. Okay, somebody stop, please, I want to hear somebody. All right, who's going to be the first? Be a hero. Come on, great, all right, hero number 1. Stand up, baby, and talk loud.
How long were you on the boat?
To come to America?
Yes.
It was a very rough voyage. In May, we were 10 days. And it was an army transport boat, the Marine Perch. They used to bring soldiers to Europe. They were built like, some of them in one night, the Kaiser boats, and some of them cracked up in mid-ocean. It was very rough. Women and children were on A and B deck, and men were in those hammocks under the waterline. But we were happy to come in. Everybody was sick on the boat. It was very rough. Anybody else? Yes?
So when you came to America, did you stay in like New York, or did you like move?
No, well, my mother had a brother in New York. We came over and spent a little time with them. But then they got a job. It was very difficult to get a job. We had no money, and we had to sleep somewhere. And my mother and my father became a couple. In other words, my mother became a maid, cook, and my father a butler in this very rich house. And there was a girl in the camp who got a little bit more food. And I was very jealous of her. And we were told, don't go near that girl. She's very sick. That's why she's getting maybe an extra piece of bread. But we played with her, and I prayed to God, I want to have what she has. And when I came to America, almost immediately I became sick again, and I had tuberculosis. You know what tuberculosis is? Terrible disease. Thank God there are not that many cases anymore. It was one of the worst killers of all time, mainly in the lungs. And it's called consumption because you feel like you're consumed by this little bug. And they put me in the hospital for 2 years on bed rest. There was no cure. Either you lived or you died. And finally my parents took me out, and there was a new drug that came out, the first drug ever, streptomycin, very painful needles, and I got better. And then some other drugs came, 26 pills a day, sick from morning to night, but I improved. I never finished my first grade. I had 6 months of schooling. I had to go to a special school. You saw the film. I had to take the train as a 6-year-old all by myself. And it became even worse when we had to wear the yellow star. You saw it in the film, quite big. But I have my star here. And my mother saved 1 or 2 stars. They came on the yellow sheet. Every Jew from the age of 6 on, in Germany and in Austria, in 1941, had to wear this badge. You had to sew it over your left side. Jude means Jew. Later on, there were some other ones in French, Juif, Yod, like Anne Frank. I don't know if she had to wear it because she stayed a lot in the annex. She probably wore it too. When you were outside, you had to wear that star. J-O-O-D was the Dutch version, French Juif. Maybe some people speak French here. so you know it's true. And it was very, very difficult to walk around with this. And I remember only one person who was nice to me on the train, the righteous Gentile. And you saw in the film another one, Teresa, my grandmother's maid, who was a good person, who did not want to just stand by. I just was in Scotland, where I was a keynote speaker for the Holocaust Day, January 27, which is considered the International Holocaust and Genocide Day. My partner for this was somebody from the United Nations who talked about Rwanda. Because since the Holocaust, you had more genocides. People hating each other for no good reason at all. And the motto this year was, don't stand by. And this woman who gave me her lunch in a brown paper bag as she left the train car. So there are two heroes in my life. Teresa, my grandmother's maid, and that lady whom I never knew the name of. And it goes back also to you. When you see bullying, it's a very big problem today, everywhere. In New York especially, and I'm sure you have also here. When you see somebody doing bad things to another, don't just go the other one on, say, yeah, get him. Tell your teacher, tell your principal. Don't be a bystander. You don't have to be hurt yourself. Never be a bystander. Do something. Very important. Had many more people done at least something, I think this terrible tragedy wouldn't have gone to the extent that it did. Now, I want some more questions. I lost 8 years of schooling in my life, 8 years, never finished my first grade. And I didn't speak English. I know there are probably some immigrants right here now. And I had the same problem. I had to learn English. And I tried hard to lose my accent. Maybe I have my New York accent, Brooklyn accent. But I tried very hard to become a real American. The Germans took away my citizenship when I was 6 months old. So I was stateless. So I'm so grateful to America for giving me a chance to live, giving me back my health, permitting me to go to school. So my first schooling was, real schooling to finish a school, was at age 15. I lost 8 years of schooling in my life because I was sick a lot because of this terrible experience. But I went to college and I majored in chemistry, and I worked for 38 years for major medical doctors in research, all different projects, and 30 years in the same job in a major hospital, Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. So I know you're thinking, well, I have troubles at home, I have things, and I'm not we weren't rich either when we came. We had nothing. We were immigrants, like many of you right now in the audience, or some of you. I know how it feels. But you can make it. You can, if you try. Look, I never even finished my first grade. But I went to college, and I did quite well. Yes. Anybody else? Yes, please.
What was the hardest part about living in a concentration camp?
It is the fear of tomorrow and hunger and losing your freedom. That is something. Freedom is not free. It's a very precious commodity, the most precious, and food. Hunger is a terrible thing. Now, I was lucky that I was able to be with my parents. Now, in my camp, men, women, and children had to live separate, but they could still see each other. But my father was a soldier in World War I. He was wounded very badly fighting for his country, Germany. And we lived in a compound where we were allowed to live together, very primitive, very tiny room, 2 out of the 3 years, in double-deck bunk beds, no real mattress made out of straw, no chair, no table, your little cubby hole, your bed, that became your home. And it was fear of being separate from our parents. Now our parents, our fathers, were war heroes. Some had their legs missing, arms missing. One, I remember, had a hole in his head. It was draining still after many years. He was in total pain, constantly. And so the fear of being sent somewhere else. Terrorism was it was a strange kind of a place. It is a place where they put, from all of Europe, the intelligentsia of the Jewish people. The best doctors, the best lawyers, very famous people were sent there. In other words, to show the world, oh, they're all in one place, we're not hurting them. And of course that was not the case. And we were there only like a holding area, like you put cows in a corral before you kill them. In fact, I will tell you just about one example which I just found out. The man who formulated the Bayer aspirin. Now the idea of the aspirin is old, but to put it into a pill that you can take, one of the most famous medicines in the world that ever was created, was by a Jew. And he didn't want to use his name, all Jewish men had to have the name Israel. And the women Sarah. He didn't want to do that. And they sent him to terrorism. Fortunately, he survived. And there were people, many people like that, who were very famous. But to be there, only every Jew, and especially children, had the death sentence. We were 15,000 children. Perhaps 1% came out of it. I mean, there's some records that say 1,000. I did not see 1,000 children, young children under the age of 15. I was 10 years old at that time. My best friend, Ruth, who shared the bunk bed with me and her parents. We were on upper bunk, she the bottom. And they came from Berlin. Her father was half Jewish, the mother totally. Ruth was brought up as a devout Christian, devout. She died in Auschwitz as a Christian because of her Jewish heritage before her 10th birthday. And at the end, I will show you a picture of her. I have a picture of her now. Next, anybody else? I want to, yes, please.
On a typical day in the concentration camp, what did you get for a meal?
Well, in the morning you stood in line with your metal can. And by the way, you were not supposed to have, when we were deported, no knives, no scissors. We arrived with a little duffel bag, a blanket. Everything else was taken. And of course I had my doll in my arm. They were whipping us, so forth. And we stood in line in the morning to get this black liquid. It tasted terrible. We used it as a cleaning agent for our clothes. It was like a detergent. Lunch was maybe stay in the line, long lines again, winter and summer. Maybe a potato, not a good one. And a little turnip, no other vegetable. And a soup with some murky looking stuff in it. And the same again at night. It was not enough to live, not enough to die. And we were in constant watch. Of course, you couldn't leave. Nobody had a radio, no newspaper. Bathrooms were the latrines. They were hot in the summer, winter, very cold, no heat in there. Men went one side, women the other, no privacy. And many people had dysentery from the bad water. We pumped our water from these polluted wells. So mice, rats, fleas, and bedbugs were a constant menace. And we got a bread ration maybe once a week. Not good bread. And they had all kinds of things in it, fillers in it. And my mother would cut a notch into one, from Monday to Tuesday, and then Wednesday. If you went into next day's portion, you didn't have any bread. Food was probably one of the most important things to have. Yes. Excuse me. Yes, in the back there was a hand up. Okay, okay, great. Stand up and yell out loud.
What was the first, or do you remember the first thing you ate when you got out of the camps?
Yes, I do. In fact, I wrote a sequel to my book where you really get to know me, and all the books are on Amazon. It's called Beyond the Yellow Star. We were liberated by the Russians, Soviet Army, on May 8th, 1945. And I have a chance this year to be on May 9th, 8th, 9th, they flowed into each other, to be in Russia for that day. I don't know if it will work with the visa business and so forth. And when we could not go home right away. We had a tremendous typhus epidemic. Then finally a bus came from Stuttgart to pick up the few survivors. Out of 1,200 people, there were 13 survivors. A miracle, a mother, father, and child intact. And we were brought to Stuttgart to a displaced persons camp, a building that they set up. And they had set up white tablecloths. The tables were set with white tablecloths. And the one thing that I had as my first meal was noodle soup. Wonderful soup that tasted like heavenly. And that's what the first thing I ate, my meal back in Germany. Soup. Yes?
Did anyone try to take your doll away?
Yes. When before we were deported, we were told to gather in school gymnasium. Every time we gathered the people, 50 here, 100 there, and they said, open everything. And one guard saw that I had a little Dutch boy pin. I have a pin today, a butterfly. It has a great significance. There was a boy in the camp, Pavel Friedman, he was a teen, who wrote a poem, I never saw another butterfly. Unfortunately, he was killed. And the butterfly became the symbol all over the world of the 1.5 million murdered Jewish children. We all wear butterflies. And then this guard, I sidetracked a little bit because I am wearing a pin today. And the other side, actually, a little Scottish child gave me a guardian angel because I was in Scotland. And one of the guards, while I was being deported, he saw I had my doll in my arm, ripped her from me. And she was hollow inside. He thought I was hiding something. And I really carried on. I wasn't going to let him have my doll. And he did bring back my doll. That's why I brought it to America and gave it to the Holocaust Museum. Yes, back there were some more hands up. Yes, please. They cut my hair when I was full of lice, when I was in the hospital. It wasn't really a real hospital. Some rooms set up, and we had scarlet fever as soon as I arrived, maybe 2 weeks later, incubation period. When we arrived, we were on the bare floor, up in the attic, one of those brick buildings, and no bed, nothing. And I never saw any dead body before. And there were white sheets on the ground. And I looked under one, all bodies. So what did you ask again? I'm sidetracked a little bit. Oh, cut my hair. And they cut my hair when I was, in the hospital because I was full of lice. No, in terrorism we did not get tattoos. Only in Auschwitz did people get tattoos. To the people who were still allowed to live a while as a registration mark. That was the only camp because people always asked me, show me your tattoo. And that was the only one. And there were hundreds of concentration camps, maybe even thousands throughout Europe. And nobody had a tattoo, but I mean, that didn't mean that you were not going to be killed. I had a number, Roman numeral 13-1-408. That number is tattooed on my heart and will be there forever. Yes, there was somebody back there who had the hand up, please.
Well, there was a question back here, but somebody's afraid to ask it, so I'll ask it for them.
Please
but
do.
He was asking where you were when you found out about Hitler's death, and then how your family and you felt about that.
Well, look, I was 10 years old at the end of the war. And to me, politics and Hitler, I never saw Hitler. I know he was a bad guy. At the end of the war, we found out that he had died. But for me, I mean, I'm not a historian by that time. I'm not a philosopher. You know, people always ask, what did you think and how did you survive? By luck. That's all. Luck. You couldn't do anything. I'm not a philosopher when I'm between the age of 7 and 10. The only thing I worried about, will they take my parents away? That to me was very insignificant. The main thing was to be liberated. And whoever came, my hometown was liberated by the French and British. Canadians were there too. My mother's section, where she came from, the Americans came in. We didn't care who came in, as long as somebody came. And it's probably the last camp that was liberated. One of the last, for sure. May 8th, the war in Europe was over. No, I didn't remember. I mean, for me, Hitler, I knew Hitler was a bad guy, but when he died, this was insignificant to me. The main thing is to gain my freedom. But how did we feel? It was difficult too. At the end, they were burning all the records in the camp, many of the records, some, and there are many still available, of course. And they were going away in their trucks. There was a lot of noise. I jumped under the barricades, and as soon as I did that, I heard a big explosion. And I touched my head to see if my head was still there. By this time, I'm 10 years old. And they were throwing hand grenades into the camp. One whizzed right by me, and some people got killed. Now, we did not have gas chambers in Terezin. It was a holding area. But at the end, Eichmann, who was the primary person for the deportation of all the Jews in Europe, all of Europe, came many times. I did see him. He was in front of me. And he ordered gas chambers to be built, but they were incomplete. They were never used. But at the end of the war, Auschwitz was already liberated in January. We were only still in grave, grave danger in May when I was liberated. And they brought in the transports from many of the camps as they were being liberated. You know, before they were liberated, they sent them on death marches. And they came to our place, and they were in terrible shape. And they told us, don't you know what happened? They kept it from us. There was even in Auschwitz a special family camp, they called it, with the Terezin people who were sent there. And they were supposed to write back to us on postcards, oh, come and join us. It is very nice here. Of course, almost all of them were killed. Now, they showed the camp in 1943, in the summer, to the International Red Cross. Because the International Red Cross was pushed, finally, after all these years. Millions of people had been killed by them. And to look at one of those camps. And they decided they're going to show Terezin, which was actually a little town where before about 7,000 people lived, and they took those out and made a camp. It was totally surrounded by high brick walls, barbed wire and wooden fences. And they made some deception. They printed some money, monopoly money. You couldn't buy anything but mustard, made you even more hungry. Put up signs to school, to playground, put up a children's opera, and some children got sardine sandwiches. Only the people who were still in good shape were shown. In fact, they made a film at that time, which you can see on YouTube, snippets of it. Go to YouTube. And the title is The Führer Gives the Jews a City. Totally lies. And they went away believing this lie. As soon as they went away, almost the whole camp was sent to Auschwitz, including my best friend. Almost all my friends died. We lost at least 13 immediate members, including my grandmother, aunts, uncles. We don't even know where they died. I know my grandmother was sent to Riga in Latvia, which is near Russia. We were supposed to be sent there. We got out of that transfer in the last minute. And I went there a few years ago to the forest. And there are at least 52 mass graves. More than 50,000 people were shot into those mass graves. There are no names there, nothing. And for all intents and purposes, I should have been in one of those mass graves. I'm the only child from the state of Württemberg, big state, who was in the camp who survived. My total of my family were 13 immediate members, altogether about 20. And I'm the only child. I have no relatives in America. I have one remaining relative, first cousin in Brazil. They got out before all this happened. How much time we still have?
About 15. I think you have another question to Kate.
Okay,
A
please.
couple more.
Yeah, as many as you want. I'm going to sit down.
So, since its placement in the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., have you or how often have you gone back to visit your dolls?
Well, I went back for the filming of this film. And by the way, those poems you heard being read and the prose came from my book, I'm a Star. And she's kind of brittle. They have shown her. I mean, you saw the cage she's in a few times, but now she's quite brittle. And they are not showing her. But if you want to see her, you can ask them ahead of time. They will take her out to show it to you. In fact, she was in a commercial recently to raise money for the Holocaust Museum. And that little film was shown on CNN on Holocaust Remembrance Day, January 27, on CNN, together with Voices of Auschwitz, I think it was called, and it has been shown many times, History Channel and so forth. And there was a little black girl who wrote a book about me, Children Writing for Children, and they chose us to be in that commercial because there was a big story in the Washington Post about us, and they decided, oh, this would make a good story, and it made quite a bit of money for them, and we're happy about that. But the doll was the center of that commercial.
A question.
Yes, please.
I saw the phrase, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but like Arbach Mach
Yes.
in the movie. Do you know what that means?
Yes, work makes you free. Every camp had that line over the camp. You're going to a work camp. And total lie. And you know, when I think back now, Germans are nice people. Very nice, normal people. How could nice people become so bad? Does everybody have a Jekyll and Hyde in us? The good and the bad takes over? It's a question. How do people become so bad? Again, in the 20th century we had, the 19th century we had communism, then we had Nazism, now we have terrorism. I don't know, will we ever learn to love each other, to respect each other? I don't know. But that's why I say forgiveness means nothing to me. Those are words. It's in the past. But to do something for the present, you know, to become friends with other people, the Germans do. I go every year to Germany, at least once. And I have many, many friends in Germany today. Maybe better ones than I have in America. And I could get my German citizenship back, by the way. I am born there. But I don't want it. I don't need it. I'm an American citizen. That's all. That's good enough for me. Good enough for me. The only thing I can't become is a president. I have to be native born. Maybe it will change someday. Next.
Were there any escape attempts from your concentration?
Yes, there were a few, very few, who did get away. It was very, very difficult, which made it even worse for us staying behind because we were punished for that. I remember once they gave us a soup with only these black seeds in it to punish us. A caraway seeds, you know, rye bread. Are you familiar with rye bread?
Yeah.
You know, with the black seeds. Well, in New York you have that, very common. And I will not eat anything with those black seeds on it because it reminds me of this terrible tasting soup. Yes. Yes, please.
Did any of your friends survive?
I have a few that I knew, very few, but my best friend did not. Very few. Yes, anybody here? Yes.
Who were the kids that spoke in the video?
Oh, that's very interesting. Well, we made that film on a shoestring. And some of the people helped us was in Universal Studios in Hollywood, and they were the children of some of these people who spoke these words. It was done without any money, for instance, when we went to Terrazin, the principal of the school in my hometown, he drove one car, somebody else volunteered to drive, and today this film is being sold. I do not own this film, that's why I told them to stop filming it, because it is sold in Canada by the Visual Education Center in Toronto. It's with an agency. They have now the ownership of this video. It can be bought. It's in Canada. I can give you the address. Anybody wants to buy it, you can speak to them. I do not own this film. It's my filmmaker who was an Israeli. He's an Israeli man, and he went back to Israel. And I thought the film came out quite good, a short film, because it can be done in the classroom to read the book and then also to look at the film, because you see the actual, it was done on location. You see the room I'm born in. My house is still standing. In fact, in a few weeks, I'm going with a group, an EF tour, with college students and some professors, also some from here. We are going to spend 2 extra days on this World War II trip in my hometown and my mother's hometown. So, yes. Anybody? There were some people here. Anybody here? Please, yes. Take the opportunity. You can ask me. Okay, you want to go? You stand. Did you want to ask a question? Yeah, please do. And then you come.
What was your favorite birthday present?
My favorite what?
Birthday present.
Oh my gosh. Well, as you saw, well, where? A birthday present where? In the camp?
No, like just any birthday in your life.
Oh, I don't know. I think a delicious meal was very important. And since we lived a real German life, my special food, I would say food, food was always important. And my mother would say, what would you like for your birthday? What shall I cook for you? I said, a Sauerbraten. And that's the dish, the main dish in southern Germany with Spätzle, you know, the homemade noodles. And she made that for me every year. And my mother gave me it was very difficult to give anything to a child in the camp. Somebody sold some clothing from rags. Everything was from rags for my doll. And my girlfriend also had some clothing which she gave me before she went to Auschwitz. She had no clue where she was going, absolutely no clue. I gave those little things. The hat that you saw my doll wearing, that was from Ruth. I gave that to the Holocaust Museum and a little shirt. And I got once a little birthday cake made out of a mashed potato the size of a child's hand. That was something so special for me. No birthday cake. And once my mother wrote a poem for me on my 10th birthday. It was very hard to celebrate. Yes, anybody? Yes, please.
In the concentration camp, did you get any special treatment if you had scarlet fever?
Special treatment for what?
Scarlet fever. Yes, scarlet.
For what?
Scarlet fever.
No, we were 2 children in every bed, and we couldn't see our parents. And my partner was a little girl from Luxembourg, a little baby. And the bed was constantly wet, couldn't do anything. I was covered with boils at that, and one sickness after another. And we were really scared that they would take our parents away. And there were many other children who didn't speak German. I never heard any language besides German. They spoke Czech. I never really learned it. I can still count to 10. Jeden, dva, tři, čtyři, pět, šest, sedm, osm, devět, deset. That was ingrained in me, because in the morning sometimes we lined up, we counted, so I remembered that. Na shledanou, goodbye, ruku liba, malo, and these words. You're going to Czechoslovakia soon again, Czech Republic, and I used my 3 words that I remember. Yes. Anybody? Yes, back. Yes, please.
Did you do, what was your work
No, children didn't do any work. We rummaged around in a garbage dump. There was some slave labor there. They had a barrack where the women sliced mica. Mica, excuse me, is like a stone. It looks like a stone, and they cut it into thin films. It was used in the war effort. I do remember once uniforms were brought in and they sprayed them white for the war effort by, going into Russia. I have a friend who was a little older. She worked in fixing up, stitching up bullet holes in uniforms from the German soldiers who, were hurt, and they brought these uniforms back. By the way, we had to pay for the trip to go to the camp. We had to pay. We had to pay for the damage that they did on Kristallnacht, which you saw very well described, and paid for everything. My father and my grandfather were in Dachau at that time, the first concentration camp. All men from the age of 16 on, boys and men, were sent to concentration camp on November 9th and 10th. And it was quite interestingly described in the film. Yes? Who else? Yeah, please.
Do you have any family members living today?
Only one cousin, a first cousin, in Brazil. She's 91. She looks great. She had 3 facelifts. She looks better than I. Yes. Yes, please.
Way in the back.
Yes, please.
What was the nicest thing someone's ever done for you in the camp?
I didn't quite get that. Can you?
What was the nicest thing that anybody ever did for you in the camp?
Well, I do have a hero there too, and Mrs. Rinder. She saw us lying on the floor up in the attic. It was a Czech woman. And she said, out of the blue, she was a hero. She said, "Is there a child in the transport?" I said, "Yes, here she is." And she took me to a room further down in this great big brick barrack, the Dresden barrack. And she put me in a room. There was no beds available for me, no bunk bed. I was on the floor. And later, her husband had a fairly good job working in the kitchen. And sometimes she could give us a little bit more food. Unfortunately, after the International Red Cross inspection, I told you they were, almost everybody was sent to the East. It was always called the East. We didn't know what East meant, but it meant to be killed. And the whole family was sent to Auschwitz. Tommy, her son, died at age 6. And Scarlet, the wife, of course, probably went with the child to the gas gym. And I would like to read you something when we have about 5 minutes left.
We have 4 minutes left.
Okay, so I want to do that. So Mrs. Rinder, for me, was one of my Jewish heroes. Now, I've been searching for a picture of my best friend for many years, maybe 30 years. And it was, I tried everything. And everybody said, well, you go here, you go there. Finally, last year, I decided, there was a German newspaper online, the Tagesspiegel in Berlin. It's also a paper, quite big. I wrote to the editor, because Ruth came from Berlin. I am looking for Ruth Nellie Abraham. Does she have any relatives left? Is there a picture of her? She was a very bright child. She would have been a great artist someday. And lo and behold, 2 people answered me. One was a journalist. I didn't meet him. American, he wanted to write a story, which he did. And then a genealogist. She started to research the family, and she found actual family members of her. And one of them had a picture of her when she was about 4 years old. Can you put the lights a little bit higher, please? And I have the picture of her. And I carry it with me now, wherever I go. That was Ruth. You multiply that by 1.5 million, then you know what happened. Now, in the Holocaust, you had 11 million actual people being killed. Mainly, 6 million were Jews, among the 1.5 million children. But there were 5 million others. Who were they? Do you know who they were? Jehovah's Witnesses, gypsies, people with mental and physical difficulties, some clergy, anybody who was against Hitler, some poets. And every single one of them deserved the right to live. Now one day I'm sitting in my kitchen and I'm thinking that of Ruth. How did she feel when she walked with her mother into the gas chamber, as many of the children did? And I wrote a poem, it just flowed out of me. And I dedicate this to Ruth and all the children who walked with their mothers, because that's how they did it. The mothers went with the children and the men separate. And I will read you that poem. It's quite devastating. Because a mother still gives hope to her child, even when she knows there is no hope. The poem is called Hold Me Tight. I guess I have to stand here, it's more light. Come with me, my child. Hold my hand. Be calm, my child. Do not try to understand. Don't be afraid, my child. Walk with pride. You know your mother is here at your side. Hold me tight. Day has turned to night. Soon we'll see the light. There is still hope. A mother is giving her child hope. No, no, don't look at the chimney. See the blue sky. My arm is around to protect you. Don't cry. Come close, let the blows fall on me. There'll be a day when again we'll be free. Hold me tight. Day has turned to night. Soon we'll see the light. Give all your belongings to them. Quickly undress. One day soon we will again have happiness. Sleep, my child. I have no more to give. Oh God! Oh God! We are not going to live. Hold me tight. Day has turned to night. Hold. I know you have to go to eat. I want you to be the ambassadors to share this story, because you're going to be the last people to actually speak with somebody who was there, whom you can touch, embrace, hug. And today it's already, there are people who say this never happened, the Holocaust deniers. And to become friends with other people. Open your heart to people who don't look like you. Don't become like these people who killed so many. Become good people and share your love for them. And I beg you to do that. It will enrich your life and go with blessings. And thank you for your attention. You were wonderful. Thank you.